Let us continue with the story. Manny Rat hesitated. The frog was utterly helpless against him, yet the rat became uneasy. He had always feared the fortune-teller a little. He felt him to be not only a prophet of good or bad luck, but its active agent as well. He drew nearer, and staring past the frog, he saw the mouse child staring back at him, and the night sky mirrored in his glass-bead eyes. Manny Rat felt himself by some strange magnetism drawn to the father and the son, felt that something was wanted of him, forgot almost that he was there to smash them up. He stood his head and picked up a rock. He shook his head and picked up a rock. "Step aside, Frog," he said. "I'm going to smash your friends." Frog, racking his brain for some way of placating Manny Rat, acted on a sudden impulse. "Let me read your future," he said. Manny Rat held out his palm and laughed. "Go ahead," he said. "I may very well be the only member of the present company that has one." Smiling, the frog approached, but he never took the rat's extended paw, nor did he speak the fair words he was shaping. He found himself looking into Manny Rat's eyes. In other words, obscure and cryptic, came into the fortune-teller's mind. Against his will, his broad mouth opened, and he spoke them. "A dog shall rise," he said. "A rat shall fall." Manny Rat leapt back as if he had been struck. "What's that supposed to mean?" he snarled. Frog had no idea what those words meant, nor did he care. He wished heartily that he had never set eyes upon the mouse and his child, and as his mouth opened again, and he heard from as a distance his voice repeat, "A dog shall rise, a rat shall fall." "That may be," said Manny Rat, his fears forgotten in his rage, "but you'll fall first. You and your wind-up friends will finish up together. I'm going to tear your throat out." "Of course," said Frog. "Why not?" He nodded sadly. Let me retry that. "Of course," said Frog. "Why not?" He nodded sadly, then turned his back on Manny Rat and looked toward the shrews as they right-faced and prepared to march away. Above the spears, the tattered moleskin Gideon hung limply in the moonlight. Frog sighed, and wondered what the mole's last thoughts had been. "Oh, unless to look to them for help," said Manny Rat. "If you have any parting words for one another, now is the time to say it." "Rations!" bellowed the frog. "Fresh meat for the army, rations for the troops, right here." "Rations!" came the shrill response across the snow. The compact little mass of black figures suddenly grew as large as it wheeled about and sped forward, the spears all pointing in a single direction, and the Gideon fluttering like a hunger's lean banner. "Stay for dinner, do," urged Frog as Manny Rat took to his heels, but the thwarted rat made no reply. Running for his life, he vanished into the darkness of the trees as a wave of musk scent surged over the fortune-teller, the father and his son. "Uncle Frog," cried the child, "the shrews will eat you up." "Better then than Manny Rat," said Frog, having intended to betray his friends. He had betrayed himself instead, and now, calm and resigned, he waited as the briskly trotting screws skidded to a halt before him. Two or three of the more short-sighted troops bumping into the mouse and his child and knocking them over. All of them were thin and famished looking and moved their jaws as if determined to be chewing hard whatever anything should come their way. "Tough, very hard and tough," said one, rubbing his nose when he had bruised it on the father's tin. "Save him for the officer's mess," said another as he pinched the frog. "This one's fine. This one's plump and tasty. He smells good." "Oh yes," said someone else. "I've had Frog. Frog's good." A stiff-nosed corporal appeared, looked up at Frog, and took a straw from his mouse-skin pouch. "One frog," he said, and notched the straw with his teeth. Two what?" "Mice," said Frog. "They don't smell like any mice I ever ate," said the corporal, a bit more notches in his tally. "Who turned you in, anyhow?" "Destiny," said Frog. "You can't trust anybody," said the corporal. He put away the straw and turned the captives over to the guard. "All set," he reported to the sergeant in command of the commissary patrol. "Let them go," said the sergeant, "and no more fife and drum. We're getting too close to the border." "Rations, fall in," shouted the corporal. The frog and the mouse and his child were hustled to the head of the column. Behind them a little group of captive wood-mice shuffled their feet and wept. "Shut up," said the guard to the wood-mice, "or I'll stick you with this spear and go bye-bye right now." "Forward, ho!" That's how it's spelled. Yelled the sergeant. The scout with the firefox trotted on ahead. The Gideon bearer stepped out bravely under the lean banner, and troops shouldered their spears and marched off with short tails whisking, their massed black shadow keeping step with them across the moonlit snow as they herded their rations back to headquarters. The mouse child, as he walked backwards, found himself facing the drummer boy. "Is it really a war?" he asked his little soldier. "Of course it is," replied the shrew. Our territory's all hunted out, so I'll have to fight the shrews down by the stream for theirs. It's the other way around that I've heard, said the Fifer. I heard their territory's all hunted out and they're invading us. What's a territory? Asked the Mouse Child. What do you mean, what's a territory? Said the drummer boy. A territory's a territory, that's all. Rations don't have territories, said the Fifer. Not after we catch them, said the drummer boy. But they do before. Everybody does. We didn't, said the Mouse Child. No wonder your rations now, said the little shrew. What chance has anybody got without a territory? But what is territory? Asked the Mouse Child again. A territory is your place, said the drummer boy. And that's where everything smells right. That's where you know runaways in the hideouts night or day. It's what you fought for, what your father fought for, and what you feel all safe and strong there. It's the place where when you fight, you win. That's your territory, said the Fifer. Somebody else's territory is something else again. That's where you feel all sick and scared and want to run away. And that's where the other side mostly wins. The father walked in silence, and a wave of shame swept over him. What chance has anybody got without territory? He repeated to himself, and knew that the little shrew was right. Without her territory, he repeated to himself, and knew that the little shrew was right. What chance had they indeed? He saw now that for him and for his son the whole wide world was someone else's territory in which he could not even walk without someone to wind him up. Frog wound him now, and they marched, and the father felt the key turn on his back as a knife turns in a wound. No one spoke for a time. The wood mice whimpered softly, the shrew's feet pattered on the crusted snow, the frog's matchbox rattled as he hopped, and the tinned feet of the mouse and his child scraped steadily ahead to the buzzing of their motor. The whole company were nervously alert as they marched, and the spears chinked against one another, pointing this way and that way as the shrews, sniffing incessantly, looked behind them, or peered aside into the shadows of the trees along the meadow's edge. Where are we now? Said the corporal, his long nose twitching anxiously. Almost there, I think, said the sergeant. The route he was taking was not one that the company had used before. There was no spoor to guide him, or the scout who reconnoitered? Up ahead. The sergeant was relying on his sense's direction to bring him to an area where he could pick up the scent of his battalion. Where are we heading back to headquarters? When are we heading back to headquarters? Demanded a shrill voice from the ranks. Let's eat now, yelled someone. Knock it off, staffed the uneasy sergeant, and sniffed the air again. The frog hopped patiently along without a word. As far as he knew, he was hopping to his death, and he was thoroughly disgusted with himself. He had attained his present age, however, by paying closer attention to not being eaten than his enemies could bring to bear on eating him. Therefore, he put aside his fears and opened all his perceptions to every possibility of escape. Looking down at the tracks made by the mouse and his child as they walked ahead of him, he noticed that the father, owing to one of his legs being bent more than the others, did not walk in a perfectly straight line, but in a series of long arcs that curved well ways to the left. Being at the head of a column, he had imperceptibly taken the whole company off their course of march, and a sensation of uneasiness had begun to spread through the ranks. I feel funny, said the drummer boy. However soldierly he bore himself, he stood less than 2 inches high. The moonlit meadow suddenly seemed vast and dangerous around him, and his trembling paws involuntarily rattled the soft tattoo on the drum. So do I, said the Fifer. And you know why? I know why. We're lost, and we're in their territory. The Gideon bearer, the sergeant, and the corporal, and their own misgivings were put into words, stopped short, and the column halted unevenly as each shrew bumped into the one in front of them. The scout, whose sorties had been growing ever briefer, snapped back at the company that if connected to them by a rubber band, and hastily buried his foxfire in the snow. The father, unable to push his son past the Fifer, trod the snow until his spring ran down. Are you scared? The mouse child asked the drummer boy. Me scared? Never, declared the young soldier. At least I don't think I'm scared. It's my first war, really. They were in a little hollow screened by a thicket on the windward side. Their voices now were strangely loud in the still air, and everyone felt silent. What's going to happen, Uncle Frog? Whispered the mouse child. I don't know, said Frog, but look for a sharp chance to escape. War, muttered the father. The trash can, the dump, murder, robbery, and war. Shut up, said the shrew who was guarding them, and drawing his breath suddenly, fell forward with a spear in his back. Oh, this is getting good. It's still dark, but I do at least 2 or 3 at a time. They're just fun to read. Alright, I love you, Christy. Sleep well, keep calm, find a llama, carry on, and I'll talk to you very soon. I love you, Christy. Good night.